Shopify Masters is powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. To get an extended 30-day trial, visit shopify.com/masters.
Design is like an extra voice to have for your company.
Hey, my name is Felix. I'm the host of Shopify Masters. Each week, we learn the keys to success from e-commerce experts and entrepreneurs like you. In this episode, you'll learn how to hire a designer to design your packaging, the process to get USDA certified organic, and how to adapt your marketing if your customer base changes. Today, I'm joined by Patrice Mousseau from Satya. Satya sells a fragrance-free, Health Canada-approved, certified organic anti-inflammatory balm for eczema relief and was started in 2014 and based out of Vancouver. Welcome, Patrice.
Thanks, Felix. Thank you for having me on your show.
Of course. So tell us a bit more about this product that you sell and what was the idea behind it? How did you come up with the product?
Well, it was out of necessity. It was for my daughter. But first, I think I better back up a little bit and talk a bit about what my background is, which is actually in journalism. I'm a researcher by trade and was in radio and television broadcasting for probably about 15, 16 years. And then I got pregnant and had a baby. And of course, my world just completely changed, my priorities and how I was spending my time. And when she was about 8 months old, my daughter, Esme, ended up getting eczema. And she was scratching so bad that her arms and legs were bleeding. I would pick her up out of her crib and there'd be blood on the crib sheet. So it was a real kick in the gut for me as a mother because I felt very powerless to help her because when I took her into the doctor, their only option was steroid creams, which I knew based on my past experience in the media. I'd seen stories about how negative and detrimental steroids can actually be, especially used in the long term. So I was up all night, basically taking care of her anyway, and I just started researching. I started looking at not only traditional medicine, but I looked at academic studies from different universities to see what people have come up with in the last 10 years or so around non-toxic anti-inflammatories, and then basically took all that information and combined it together in my kitchen in my crock pot and created this product.
Wow, so this is a homemade remedy that you then decided to productize. Talk to us about that process. You created this. Of course, you tested it out on someone that needed the product. How did you take that jump to the next step, which is that I should sell this?
Right. So for my daughter, it cleared her eczema up in 2 days. So it worked very quickly, very effectively with her. And of course, it does come back from time to time, but I just then put the product on her again and it goes away again. Now, as I mentioned, I made this in my crock pot, so obviously I had some left over. So I went on my mom's Facebook group and I said to the moms, does anybody want some? And 70 jars went out my door in a month and a half. And I thought, that's interesting. But I did nothing with it because I had never considered myself to be a business person. Like I said, my background isn't something that I considered to be vastly different. I always had this stereotype, typical, perception in my mind of what a business person was. Someone who was good at math, someone who was into spreadsheets and wore a suit and, briefcase and frankly was a man. And so that was my perception. And then I ended up meeting, I later interviewed a woman for a friend of mine who had her own company. And she said, I think that you have something. You should come to this business conference for women called SVI, which is here in Vancouver. It stands for Social Venture Institute. And basically what it is about people who not only want to have businesses, but they want to have business for a greater good. So it's not just about the bottom line per se. Like, it's important obviously to have a healthy company, something that's financially viable and, you're able to make money, but it's also not just the only reason why you do business. And the women that I met there were so full of social values and integrity. And I thought, this is the type of business that I could do, that I would want to do. So at that point, I decided, okay, maybe I could be a business person, and ended up deciding, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it to the very best of my ability. I chose the name Satya because it's actually a philosophy of finding truth, personal truth. I could do this business, truth to my customers. My company was going to be of service, not about just profit. And that's become the North Star of the company. So if I was going to do it, it had to be the best of the best. So I decided that for people with sensitive skin issues, for example, it has to be really clean. So I went USDA certified organic. It's not just about the ingredients, but it's also about the policies and procedures, about getting those ingredients and how you prepare the ingredients and the cleanliness of the facilities, all those sorts of things. So it's a very high standard. Then I submitted it into Health Canada. Sorry, that's my coffee maker in the background. Submitted it into Health Canada with all of my research, because that was a hoop I also wanted to jump through. I wanted people to know that the research had been done and this had been provably shown to work for people as well. So yes, I submitted it into Health Canada, and they agreed. In fact, I could make those health claims based on that research. My packaging, again, it had to be the best of the best, even though it was more expensive. I use a glass jar, for example, because even food safe plastics will leach into your product. My paper is 100% recycled. It's created by a woman-owned business. They use wind power offsets to actually make the paper, and it's all veggie and soy-based inks. So these are all more expensive options, but they're in line with my integrity. They're in line with what I'm trying to do with a company. And I think that resonates with people.
So I want to unravel a lot of what you're saying here. So the first thing you did was to sell the excess product that you had by going to, it was basically a mother's support Facebook group. What was the Facebook group that you...
It was a mommy's Facebook group, People get together and talk about mom issues or swap clothing, that sort of stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, I think this is an approach that is a safe, low-risk approach for a lot of businesses, just to reach out to an existing group, an existing community, and see what the response is. Do you remember how you approached the group? And the reason I'm asking is because a lot of times nowadays, this is kind of a known strategy to go into these groups, and you see a lot of spam, right? You see a lot of people going around posting about their product, trying to validate it, and you sometimes, if you join multiple groups, you'll see the same post over and over again, and of course that can be annoying. How did you approach it? How did you approach it in a way that came across the right way?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. It's super annoying and very disingenuous. When I posted on my mom's Facebook group, it was just like, I literally wanted to know if anybody wanted the extra. It was not that I was planning on selling it per se, although I did end up selling it because just so many people wanted it, and I actually had to make more batches. Yeah, I just was honest about what it was and what I was trying to do, and I thought that it would be of service to other people. So I think, again, it didn't come across as salesy because it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how you figured out the price point early on, and has that changed over time?
Oh yeah, no, radically changed. It's I had, I looked at how much everything was going to cost and what are the prices that I was going to do that at. Like my industry, like a sort of the medicinal skincare industry, a lot of the larger manufacturers, they're making products for pennies, and they're selling it for like $12, $15. My product costs significantly more than that, and on the shelf it is on the higher end. But a couple of things. One is that it actually lasts a lot longer because you don't need very much. And two, I wanted to keep the price low because I'm a single mom and I want everyone to be able to afford to buy this product. So it wasn't just about how much money can I make. It's like, how can I make this product still make money and provide it to people?
Makes sense. Now, I'm looking at your site, and from the beginning and up until now, even you basically have, I guess, two products today. Started with one, now you have two products. I guess two ways to use the product. What made you make that decision to stick with these two products? And the reason I'm asking this question is because a lot of times new entrepreneurs will just launch with as many things as possible and kind of stuff their catalog. Was this a conscious decision to stick with just a couple products?
Yeah. So, well, first I need to clarify. It's just actually two different sizes of the same product in each container. The reason why I have the small container, the travel size, is because you don't actually know how something is going to work with your individual skin. And a lot of people, what they do is they buy these products and they spend all this money and they don't work for them. And then they kind of, they hide it in the back of their closet because they don't want to throw it away because they spent all this money on it, but it doesn't work for them. I never wanted to be that product. So what I did was I created actually the travel size, which is the second product that you're looking at. And there's enough in there to last about 2 weeks for people to test with their individual body chemistry. And then when it's empty, you don't throw the package away. It's a sliding tin container. So you buy the jar and then you can refill it. And then you carry the small one around in your bag. It was more about problem solving versus providing more options. And because it's an anti-inflammatory, like I formulated it for eczema, but people with psoriasis picked it up right away. Rosacea, rashes. I have a lot of athletes who are actually using it for cut and broken hands, for like CrossFitters. I've got marathon runners using it. And people do use it for, anything and everything, really.
Yeah, and that's interesting that all of these other uses, all these other problems are coming to you for their solution. Does that affect how you market, or does that change the way you want to market your product because it solves other needs? And clearly, there are people that are discovering your product to solve their needs.
Yeah. Well, eczema, I mean, it's such a big issue for so many people that I want to make sure, like, we've basically just scratched the surface on letting people know about the product. I want people to know that there is another good option out there for eczema 'cause it's such a huge issue, and steroids for the longest time have been the only option. Um, but people, again, they have taken it and said, well, what about this? And, they try it and it works fantastically. Like sunburn. I had a grandmother email me and say, I tried it on my grandkid's sunburn and it worked fantastically. And then I tried it and it worked really well for me as well. So, it really just becomes about people taking it, and it becomes like the Windex from Big Fat Greek Wedding. I don't know if you saw that movie where they put the Windex on everything kind of thing. It becomes like a multi-purpose product for a lot of people once they purchase it. But I think the initial purchase is always either eczema or psoriasis.
And you do want to keep the kind of marketing and the messaging focused on that specific, I guess, probably the largest type of problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you try to be too much for too many people, like people do use it for everything, but again, I just try to keep it focused on the one issue. And I am actually coming out with a second whole product, which would be the two SKUs for specifically for psoriasis as well, and that hopefully will be coming out in the next year.
That makes sense. So when you do roll out this other product, you plan on keeping it on this site still, right? You're not opening up a new store for it?
No, yeah, it'll absolutely be on the same site, Satya Organics, and you'll be able to actually use it for both. So the psoriasis product will be nut-free and vegan as well. So if the original Satya product isn't something that you feel like you can use, then you can try the psoriasis product on your eczema, because psoriasis and eczema, although they do tend to come from different places, they present themselves very similarly. So the treatment very often is the same.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned that there was a time, I guess, a time between when you sold the products for the first time versus and then the time where you actually decided to launch a real business. What was the timeline? Well, how much time passed during that period?
Um, Several months for sure. I would say 8 or 9 months before I finally did my first farmer's market and sold $100, which was pretty awesome. I was like, I was really excited that people were buying something that I had made.
Yeah,
So
those first sales are always the biggest rush that everyone kind of chases after again.
huge. I was so nervous too. It was amazing. It was great.
Now, did you have packaging and all that ready to go by then? Like, what kind of, I guess, what version or how ready was your product when you started to sell it as like a legitimate business?
Yeah, so right from the very beginning, this is actually the second version of our packaging design. But when I first started selling it, I knew how important good design was. So right from the very beginning, I had already decided, the good paper I was going to use, the glass jar. I got a proper designer who is still with the company today, who's amazing, and she did a fantastic job. Like I can't express enough how important it is for packaging and for products, how important good design is.
Why do you say that? Why do you find that that's an important aspect? Because it sounds like it makes your product much more, not much more, but I'm sure it makes your product more expensive for you to produce. What made you decide that it's a good investment to spend the time, spend the effort, spend the money on having this kind of packaging?
Well, I mean, there is a legitimacy issue. Like when you pick up a product from, a plastic container that's obviously been handmade and hand labeled, versus something that looks professional and well done. When people pick, and it might even be the same product, but people are always going to choose the one that they can tell time and effort has been made into making that product. So I think that there is a definite value to that. In addition, moving forward, if you want to go into a retail space, retailers are going to like your packaging. That to them says it'll be easy for them to say yes to put it on their shelves versus, again, packaging that's obviously very amateur. So good design, I again can't stress it enough. It's super important.
Yes, talk to us about this process of packaging and creating the design. We'll start with the design first. Did you hire a packaging designer? Like, how specific do you need to get if you are looking to hire someone to help you out with your packaging?
Um, It was actually at the conference that I mentioned, SVI, that I ran into a woman who had a design company. And I was talking to her because I knew how important design was. And she said, I could do this for you, but it's going to cost you $20,000. And I'm like, I can't,
Wow.
obviously it's not even an option for me. She said, however, one of my senior designers is leaving, and she's opening her own company, and maybe you should talk to her. So I was able to get this amazing senior designer who was incredibly talented and is opening her own business. And I got her for, a few $1,000s, which was incredible. And yeah, so it's about sourcing like a good designer, somebody who has designs that resonate with you and are in line with what you're trying to do.
So you're looking at like their portfolio to see what other designs they've created, and then you wanted to see if it
hmm
matches your idea of what your products should look like.
Design is like an extra voice to have for your company.
Now, when you sit down with the designer to work with them, what do you do? Like, what's your role in working with a designer?
Well, obviously it starts with a conversation about my story, the things that are important to me, what this product is all about, and the values behind that. And it's looking at obviously their past designs, and then they go away and they start to have a bit of an idea, and then they'll give you say 5 or 6 options, and then you can narrow it down to maybe your top one or two, and then you just keep honing it until you get something where you're like, yep, that seems like my product, my company, and who I am. Also,
Hmm.
it's really important to also trust your designer too. Like my background isn't in design. So to a certain extent, I have to trust that she is an expert in this, or he or she is an expert in this, and that they're going to make great design choices, maybe even not, maybe in opposition of what I would necessarily choose.
Yeah, that's a great point because a lot of times, whether it be designers or developers, you're hiring these experts, and as entrepreneurs, sometimes, of course, this is your baby that they're working on. This is your product. This is your brand that they're working on. So you feel like you have to be super involved and contribute. Maybe even feel like you need to contribute more than they should be, which is, like you're alluding to, is the wrong approach because you're hiring people and you have to trust the people that you've hired that they're going to do the job better than you. So that's why you hired them in the first place. Uh,
Exactly.
Now, when you look at your packaging in the state that it's at today, what changes did you make along the way? Like, what kind of things did you notice maybe in the initial designs that or specs that you knew you had to change to improve the design of the packaging?
Well, one of the major shifts for us was actually taking the glass jar and putting it in a box. And that wasn't a choice that we made um, uh, because we thought it would look prettier. It was actually a requirement for our Health Canada recommendations because when you get this approval, you actually have to have everything in English, French, and the ingredients in Latin. So just the simple fact that we just didn't have enough real estate on the jar, that putting it in a box was necessary. So it just became like, oh, we're also a little bit tired of the original one, and it just became something that was even more sort of on brand with what we were trying to do. So it just
Mm-hmm.
honing it down and getting it to more of what it should be.
And when you see products in stores and in the physical stores, or you look at maybe new brands online, you look at their packaging, what kind of common mistakes do you see, based on your experience that you think entrepreneurs should pay close attention to?
It's not. I see a lot of stuff that isn't very clear. Not only, I'm trying to figure out what the brand name is, as well as what the purpose of the product is. Like there seems to be a lot of noise on a lot of labels. I think simple and clean and clear is always better. Um, and that's also like not just a personal philosophy, but as a philosophy of my company. Like we only have 5 ingredients in our products. So for me, I think it should be very straightforward for the consumer to pick up your product and go, oh, that's what this is. And yes or no if I need that.
Hmm. Now, did you test that out? Or did you have to test out whether your packaging kind of ticked those boxes when you, I guess, in front of potential customers? Did you do any of that?
No, I didn't. um, Honestly, Felix, like I said, my background is not in business. So much of what I do is based on gut. Like,
Hmm.
what is my gut telling me about these decisions? And I can try to, overthink things or, my brain is telling me all these different things, but what is my gut? What is my heart telling me? And very often that's the right choice to make. So
Right. And because I want to go back to these all of these certifications and approvals that you got for your product. Can you list them again and yeah, tell us what kind of certification you had to get or that you wanted to get for your product?
we are USDA certified organic. Although we are a Canadian company, the Canadian government actually doesn't certify skin products. So we did have to go to the USDA in order to get organically certified, which is actually even better because the standard is higher. So I was quite pleased with that. And again, going through Health Canada and getting these processes done. They're both really involved. Like the paperwork and the things that they're asking for are just pretty extraordinary, like the flow charts and the overhead aerials and plant diagrams and all these sorts of things. A lot of hoops to jump through, but again, I'm really glad I did it. And probably next, I mean, we'll be looking at FDA approvals, moving into other countries. There's a lot of interest in other international markets for the product and for the company. So we'll be looking at those as well. And I would say, there people have said to me, well, you can move into this country and you can get in under the radar. I would never recommend doing that. Especially for me, I want to jump through those hoops. I want to make sure that all of the regulations and qualifiers are done.
I guess it's a good way to do a health check of your company, of your brand, of your products as well, and just for yourself, not just for the customers, or not just to slap it on a label, but just as a way to keep things tidy. It sounds. Now, when you go through these processes, are you able to reuse any of the kind of work that you do from going from USDA certified organic to Health Canada? Like, were there reusable documents, or did you have to pretty much start from scratch?
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff can translate, and I also do recommend, though. I mean, I did my USDA certification by myself, which was tough. When I went through my Health Canada certifications, I actually hired a consultant, which was such good money spent. I would highly recommend, if you're going to go this route, is to get somebody who really knows and will take it off your plate for you. And it's actually not that expensive to get somebody to help you to do this. So I would definitely recommend that as well.
Can you give an idea of what kind of budget we're talking about before this makes sense for a store?
I would say, well, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from, say, $3,000 to $4,000 to get a consultant to help you do this.
Yeah, not bad, especially if it's some product like this that people need for health reasons.
Yeah, it's and then you can actually make those health claims. So it's definitely worthwhile. It's a good investment in your company, and it's good for your customers too.
hmm And when you look for a well, where do you find a consultant like this? What are you looking for? Like, what are you Googling to find a consultant to help with this process?
Well, obviously, talking to your network, finding people who, if anybody else has worked with somebody in the past, but a lot of it's just digging into the internet and Googling and talking to people and sort of getting what you feel like is going to be a good fit for you, because the chances are you're going to be working with them again and again, and you want to too. You want somebody who knows your product, so if you end up going for something else, they understand where you're coming from.
So you're just like Googling Health Canada consultants, or was there a label for these types of folks?
So for Health Canada, it's called a NPH or an NPN, which is a natural health product number or natural health product. And yeah, there's a number of consultancies out there. They're fairly easy to find.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you did this yourself you said you did it yourself for the USDA certified organic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are some things that almost, I guess, tripped you up that you wish you would have prepared more for if you were to do this again by yourself?
Oh my gosh.
As a
It was
warning for anyone else out there.
it was a warning. Track everything. Know where everything is coming from. All of your invoices, your lot numbers, where everything is stored. Just be very, very organized as much as possible.
Okay, so now that you had all this done, you have the packaging done, you have these certifications done. What was the method that you decided to go after for driving the traffic and sales to your business?
Right. So as I mentioned, I started off in farmers markets, and it became a lot of word of mouth. It was moms talking to other moms saying, "Have you tried this?" And then I thought, I'm going to go to my first retailer. And I went to this kid store, and I said, "I have this product. I think it'd be a really good fit on your shelves." And she said, "Well, we already have so many things. We're not interested." And I said to her, I said, "Do you have any skin issues?" And she said, "Yeah, actually, I have this rash underneath my wedding ring. It won't go away, and it's really itchy." And I said, "Well, here, take one of these travel sizes, try it out, and I'll call you back in like a week or so and see what you think." Well, she called me back the next day and said, "I will carry your product. My issue is gone." So that was my first store. And then again, it was just sort of at this point, people were actually calling me because they'd heard of the product. And we got up to about 70 stores in Western Canada, so BC, basically, mostly. And I was still doing the farmers markets.
Real quick, so these farmers markets, do you find that they helped you with these retail stores, or do you feel like you could have gone straight into the retail stores?
The farmers markets were great for a number of reasons. One, talking to customers and getting to know what it is that they really wanted. Like when I first produced my product, I thought, oh, it can be like a baby balm kind of thing. People weren't interested in the baby balm, but they were very interested in the eczema. So that was like a market research. It's also very supportive of the retailers, because when somebody buys a product for you at a farmer's market, they're not necessarily going to be back in a week or a month to get more, but you can say, I'm in this store and that store, and you can pick it up there when you need it again. So that was very supportive of the retailers as well. And we were doing really well and growing quite fast. And I ended up deciding to get somebody to come in and help me with operations. And one of the things that she said, first thing is that you no longer can do farmers markets, because I was working 7 days a week. I'm a single mom, so I was taking care of my daughter throughout the week and doing these farmers markets on the weekend. So I was exhausted, and I wasn't able to get really good time spent. I just was constantly trying to put out fires and run to the next thing. So she was like, you need to back up a little bit and figure out where you want to go next. So at that point, we had been talking to a distributor, one of the big national distributors up here in Canada, and they said, we were very interested in carrying your product, but I wasn't ready. I didn't have the capacity at that point to be supplying more stores than I was at the time. So I said, no, actually. I said, but they said, okay, well, we'll stay with you. You let us know when you're ready. So I started building out capacity at that point, saying, okay, how do we streamline our suppliers? How do we, figure out where we're going to store everything? And all those sorts of issues. And then probably, I guess it was about a year later, we said yes to the distributors because we were ready. And then we went from 70 stores to about 400 stores in 2 months.
Wow. So what was that like? What was scaling up from 70 to 400 like?
Well, we had done our work ahead of time, right? We were ready. It was still a bit of a shock. We certainly weren't expecting that to happen, and certainly not that fast. But luckily, we had put some processes in place. So it was relatively painless, exciting, super exciting, but it was a good thing to have happened for sure. And they've been great, also supporting us through this entire time.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the online presence? Are most of the sales coming from these retail locations? Or do you push a lot onto the online store as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's never been like a super focus. Again, it's been a lot of like organic growth online, and they're in the retailers as well. So it's been, the couple different revenue streams. It used to be 3, but then when I dropped the farmers market, so we had the retail, the online, and the farmers markets. The retail strategy, we have some social media, a social media person working with that. But our major sort of big push happened, and again, it was actually kind of by accident. I had done my first media interview in January of this year. So we've done only one marketing campaign before that, but no advertising, no media, nothing. And I was a finalist in a business competition called SheEO, which is amazing. If you're a woman and you're looking for venture capital or any kind of like growth in your business, look to SheEO. And a friend of mine has this show on CBC Radio 1, which is their big national broadcaster. show called Unreserved. And she asked me to come on and talk about the product and talk about SheEO. And I said, sure, no problem. And I was on for about 8 or 9 minutes and just chatting. And then the retail set, like that awesome Shopify sing sound, started happening like every 30 seconds. Like it was
Wow.
insane.
How long did that last?
Well, we did $37,000 in sales in 10 days online alone. So that was our entire online sales from the year before we did in like 2 weeks, basically. All 400 stores across Canada sold out in 2 days, and there were waiting lists across the country. So in addition, we also got another 60 stores that joined up from that. So that's the power of the media and reaching people is huge. If you get an opportunity, don't ever pass it up. Don't ever think that you're not expert enough or you don't have something to say, or, you can think of somebody else who do a better job. Never do that. Just get out there and talk about what you're passionate about, and that will translate and hopefully translate into some amazing sales as well.
Now, this show that you were on, was it for business people? Like, what was the audience of people that are tuning in?
It was actually a very small show. Well, no, I shouldn't say very small show because it was hugely impactful. But it's 1 hour every week. It's called Unreserved, and it focuses on First Nations people and what they're doing just in general. But our story on Unreserved, my 10-minute story, was the most shared story in all of the nationals, the CBC Radio 1 broadcast. So even like their big shows like The Current and Q, we outshared them by hundreds and hundreds of shares. So it was super popular. People really responded to it.
Now, do you have any tips for anyone out there that is thinking about taking this approach of getting on TV shows or getting into more kind of a nationwide media appearances?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, don't be intimidated. I know it's easy to say, but honestly, I come from a background of radio and television, and if we have somebody that's going to talk and be a good interview and can be an expert for us and help solve our time crunch problems, because we're always looking for good content, we are going to be super happy to talk to you. Or they are going to be, I'm not in the media anymore, but they are going to be super happy to talk to you. So don't feel shy about reaching out to people. I would avoid press releases like the plague. Never read them. What I would do is reach out to people who have a beat, sort of a focus on what it is that you're doing, and reach out to them directly to try and develop some kind of relationship with them to let them know that you're available as an expert to them. And just be passionate. There's a reason why you got into what you're doing, and just share that with people.
Now, did you have to do any preparation? Or I guess for you're much more experienced. For anyone out there that has never done an interview before, that definitely has not been on TV or radio before, any tips on how to prepare, the days leading up to your first interview?
Sure. Well, first off, you're not providing like a dissertation on your product and the industry. And although it's important to have facts aren't really what people get engaged with. They get engaged with your passion. So have a few talking points, I'd say 4 or 5 things that you want to discuss, and maybe some key points around that, but avoid, having to read or be too scripted. Just go out there and be yourself, because it's you that people are really interested in.
Now, when you are going down this approach, this path of getting on TV, getting on the radio, who should you be trying to connect with? Like, who is the decision maker at these companies?
Yeah, so there is obviously the managing editor or the producer or those sorts of people. They get inundated a lot, and again, I would say if you can, talk to the writer, talk to the individual reporter, talk to those specific people because they're looking for you right now. Like they want to have someone like you on their program to talk about these things because content creation is huge and they don't have a lot of time and they're going to be happy to speak with you. So consider trying to get to them directly. And there are ways to do that. Like you can go on I forget the name of it, but they're like as you look up on Twitter which reporters are reporting on what kind of thing. So you can just do some Googling and reach out to those people directly.
Yeah, I've heard of this service. I haven't used it myself, but I heard of other entrepreneurs using it called, I think it's pronounced Haro, Haro, help a reporter out. And as you sign up, and I think you get to mark yourself down as an expert or someone involved in a specific industry. And essentially, I think you get a couple of emails a day, depending on which industry you're in, of course, from reporters that are just looking for people that are experts that can comment on whatever's in the news or whatever they're writing about. And it's a great way to get essentially someone to do the PR for you without you having passively, essentially, without you having to reach out yourself. So definitely check that out. Now, I want to talk a little about your site. So the design of it, I love it. I think it matches your packaging so well. Who designed it? What was the process behind creating this site?
Same person who did my packaging did my
That answers
website.
it then.
So yeah, it's gonna be pretty in line with that. Her name is Nanda Vandermeer, and she originally I met her here in Vancouver, but she moved to the Netherlands. And I still work with her. So just remote, and that's been fantastic as well. So don't limit yourself just to your specific market, obviously.
For sure. Now, has the site gone through iterations like the packaging as well, or is this the design that you've always had?
It's pretty much been the design we've always had. Again, we had a little bit of an update in the past year or so, but nothing too radically to change it. Again, it's just very straightforward, and it's about getting people the information that they're looking for, and being a place where people can actually look for our reviews as well and hear what other people have to say about the product. Because I think very often versus me talking about it, it's so important to hear other voices, and that's a really good opportunity to let people do that.
Yeah, and because a lot of your revenue is coming from the retail store, I'm assuming that's where a lot of your focus is as well. So when you sit down and think about how you should be spending your time with the website, the online store, where do you spend your time? Where do you focus on these days to grow the business when it comes to your online store, your online sales?
Mm-hmm. So obviously, our social media, we're trying to engage our customers. We do have a specific Facebook group that we started just for people to be able to talk together versus us, talking about discount codes and all that kind of stuff. It's just a place to build some community because this can be also a very isolating disease if you don't know other people that you can talk to about it and you haven't had experience with it. Having eczema and psoriasis can be it can be just terrible. Like it's not just about itchy, scaly skin. It's also about the way that people look at you when they see you on the street and how that feels as a teenager or, as a professional, and you don't want to shake someone's hand because of the state of your skin. Like these are very real things that people are suffering with, and it's an opportunity again to just get together and build a community and share things like that.
Yeah, I like how the Facebook group is built around the problem rather than your solution, right? I think a lot of times people will have a brand, have a store, and they decide to start a group, and the group is all about their product rather than people coming together as a community. Because no one really wants to spend time online talking about a product, right? No one, you barely are going to participate in a group like that. But if it's the topics, the conversations around the problems, the stigma as you are talking about. If it's if the topic is around that, then there's a lot more for people to contribute. There's a lot more value people get out of it because you can only talk about your product so much. So I think that's an important thing that you've certainly nailed, is that your group is focused on support around the problem that your product solves, but it's not about the product itself.
Mm-hmm. And, it's not just always about monetizing everything either. Like, if I'm out there providing some sort of relief to people, and not just the literal relief, but making them feel better, that to me is a huge payoff. Like, when people email me and call me and tell me, you made a difference to me or to my children, or like that's huge. And I think that's probably why I got into journalism in the first place, is I wanted to feel like I was making a difference. And at some point it became clear to me that I didn't feel like I was making the difference that I wanted to. Now, again, every day people are telling me that I've helped them. And so that has huge, huge value to me.
Now, because you are pretty much the only person running this business, of course, you're hiring people to help you out. I'm sure you rely on a lot of tools and applications to help you out. Can you talk a little bit about those, and what kind of technology do you employ, whether it be on Shopify or outside of Shopify, to help you run the business?
Well, Shopify has been incredible. I mean, I don't think I could have created this online store without Shopify and all the tools that are available to us. From mailing out our shipments to just, tracking where our sales are coming from, all the tools that are out there, being able to export from, to QuickBooks from Shopify, those apps, like it's been sort of our go-to place for sure. But I also want to be pretty clear, like I do have a team with me, and without whom I wouldn't be successful the way that I am, like my operations person, Hillary, down to like the team that helps me with labeling and fulfillment of all my products as well. So it's definitely a group effort for sure.
Mm-hmm. And any tools that you can mention or that you can think of that you rely on heavily?
Not off the top of my head, no. Other than, just everything on it. Like Shopify is just the go-to place for me. If I need something, I just look what they have available, and yeah.
Very cool. So thank you so much, Patrice. So Satya is satya.ca. Where do you want to see the business go this time next year? What are your focus, or what are your goals for the coming year?
Well, obviously we're going to continue to grow in Canada, and it's really about getting people to know that there is another option out there, another good option out there to the steroids. We do have interest in possibly going overseas to some few other countries as well, and just continue with our sort of our mission, which is to be of service in a product industry. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrice.
Thank you so much, Felix.
Here's a sneak peek for what's in store in the next Shopify Masters episode.
When people tag their friend, when they feel like it's important enough that you feel like you want to tag someone, then I think it's always some good content.
Thanks for listening to Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. To start your store today, visit shopify.com/masters to claim your extended 30-day free trial. Also, for this episode's show notes, head over to shopify.com/blog.